everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to go through the 82 books that I have copies of that came out in April that I think should be on your radar. We're just going to go in random order. These are not organized by genre or anything, but I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the ones I've already read to tell you if they're worth the money or not. The first book I have not read yet. This is called The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and this is a very, very popular author, and I'm intimidated by this because I've read one of her books already and wasn't the biggest fan, but I had to grab it. It looks really good, and I've heard some amazing reviews of it. We also have another book of the month called All We Were Promised. I think this is like a historical fiction. I haven't read that one yet. I have read Darling Girls, and this book is phenomenal. This is my favorite Sally Hepworth I've read so far, so if you like twisty type of thrillers, this one is absolutely amazing. This follows these three women that were foster kids together when they were a lot younger, and they are called back into the town that they were fosters in because there was a body found buried underneath their foster home, and so it's unburying all the secrets of this supposedly very idyllic foster home that might not have been so idyllic after all. The next one is another book of the month, and this one is The Husbands, and I'm really excited for this one because this is the one where this woman returns home and she finds her husband there. The only issue is that she's never been married. She has no idea who this guy is, but he's there, and her entire home is different, and all of her friends and family say that they've been married for a while, so she has no idea what's going on. This sounds wild. I've also read the rule book, and this is 5 stars. I love this so much. This is my favorite Sarah Adams I've ever read, and I highly recommend this. It's just such a fun and like summary type of romance book. This is a second chance romance between this agent and this NFL football player, and they end up in a like fake marriage situation, and it's just absolutely adorable. I love this. I love second chance romances, and this is just a very like sweet and wholesome book. Next up, we have this book called A Sweet Sting of Salt. I don't know much about this, but I got this for my Aardvark book subscription because it came signed, so like I had to scoop that one up. It was not an option. And then I also got Funny Story by Emily Henry this month, and I haven't read this one yet, but it's at the top of my May TBR, so I'll definitely be reading this very soon. But I've heard nothing but good things about this, and I also got the special edition, which is extra exciting. I read and really loved Late Bloomer. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was fantastic. This is a sapphic romance. It takes place on a flower farm, and it's so adorable. It follows our main character who won the lottery recently, and she basically is tired of giving people handouts. People she like hasn't talked to in forever are asking her for money, and so she decides to spend the rest of her money on this failing flower farm. She's an artist, so she decides this is a perfect place for her to like pick up her art and kind of make a career out of this, except that there's this woman that's living there who's not thrilled that she's gonna be moving in, but they're gonna end up falling for each other anyways, and it is so cute. I actually have 2 of those, so this counts as 2 of the different books. The next one I also have read, and this is When I Fall, and this is a collection of poetry. A lot of this centers around love and kind of the falling for somebody, and also like the heartbreak of losing somebody, and just kind of every life stage you could think of. And I love these poems so much. I gave this 5 stars. These like absolutely touched me. I didn't think they were gonna affect me so much in the first like little section, but then I just fell head over heels for these, so I really like these. We also have this Monica Murphy book that neither of these stories are brand new, but this binding of a book is brand new, where there are 2 together. So this is for Savor and Intoxicated. So I haven't read this one yet. It is pretty short for being 2 books though. The next one is a big fantasy book. This one's called The Dragon Rider, and I haven't read this one yet, but it is very thick. I'm a little intimidated by it. We also have the newest Harley Quinn book. This is Harley Quinn Redemption, and I am excited for this whole series. I actually just got this whole series this month. This is a YA like Harley Quinn retelling, and it's really fun looking. I don't think retelling is the right word, but basically it takes Harley Quinn's story and just takes off with it in whatever direction it wants to. This one, in this world, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy are together, and it's like fun summer break, except for girls start going missing, and so they have to like change gears from just enjoying their summer together with their romance into actually like trying to figure out what's happening to these girls. Next up, we have Dark Parts of the Universe. I don't know much about this one, but this is a YA fantasy book, and it looks really good from the cover alone. And we also have this one called The Forbidden Daughter. This is the true story of a Holocaust survivor, so I know this is going to absolutely break my heart, but I'm excited for it. Homebody I'm reading very soon. This is a graphic novel memoir, and I love memoirs when they're graphic novel form. I feel like they're so much fun, and the artwork in this looks like it's going to be absolutely amazing, so I'm very excited to read this one. Next up, we have The Last Word, which is a detective book, but it looks like a very fun thriller. It's about this very unlikely detective duo and them solving a very difficult crime together. Then, I'm actually reading this currently as I'm recording this, and I'm almost done this. I'm reading Falling for Gage, and this came out in April, and it is so good so far. If you like Archer's voice, then you absolutely have to read this one. It takes place in the same small town, and it is so cute. Next up is a special edition that was released. So this book wasn't released this month, but this edition was. This is Lessons in Chemistry, and this is the most gorgeous special edition ever. I'm absolutely obsessed with this, and I'm so happy to have this because this is one of my favorite historical fictions I've ever read. It is phenomenal. If you like the genre of historical fiction, you have to read this one. It also has women in STEM, and it is just chef's kiss. Lastly for this stack was my Arc of Darling Girls, so I read the Arc and loved it, and so I got the Book of the Month version, so same book that I already said is so good. All right, moving on, let's do this stack next. The first book in this stack is called The Idea of You, and this is a newly published in this like cover, so this book isn't brand new, but it's being turned into a movie, so they republished it. So I haven't read this one yet, but it looks interesting. It's about this woman who falls for this person that's in a band that her daughter really likes, so it's a little bit of a like age gap romance, so kind of intrigued, kind of intimidated by that. We also have Powerful, which is the little novella that goes after Powerless, and I'm excited for this whole series. I haven't read this yet, but I really wanted to get both these books because I am meeting this author in a couple weeks. Actually, I think in literally 2 days from now, so I take that back. I'm meeting this author in 2 days. I need to remember to actually go to this event. Next up, we have this memoir called The Chain, and this one sounds really, really interesting. Definitely encourage you to read up on this one. It says it's about love, betrayal, and the sisterhood that heals us. It basically deals with this guy who is like a massive con man, and he conned a lot of different women into falling for the same thing, and sounds very good and probably a hard read, but I'm excited. Next up is Truly Madly Deeply, and this cover alone had me so sold. I'm so excited for this one. This looks amazing. It's about a book about books, of course, and I think our main female character is an author, so super excited for this. Next up is this book called I'll Be Waiting for You, and the premise of this one had me sold. I wasn't like head over heels for this cover. I don't know what it was about like the color scheme that wasn't doing it for me, but the premise sounds so good on this one. This is about a girl and her best friend who basically have like this haunted like hotel situation near them, and they're doing like a senior project, and it sounds really good. I have already read this one. This one's called Not Like Other Girls, and this is a fun like YA mystery type of book, so if you like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, you'll probably like this one. It does have a lot more depth to it, like there's a lot more heavy topics in this as well. It is a bit on the thicker side, and I overall liked it. I give it like 3.75 stars. My only complaint was that it is a little too long, but the storyline is really good. Next up, we have this book called Power and Glory, and this is the Elizabeth II and the Rebirth of Royalty, so I think this is a non-fiction or historical fiction. I'm really not sure. Then we have Bridesmaids for Hire, and this is something that's very high on my TBR. I'm so excited for this. I've heard nothing but good things so far. Megan Quinn writes really amazing romance books. I did already read How to Plot a Payback, and overall I do recommend that. I gave it like 3.5 stars. It's a fun, cute, wholesome romance. It's nothing like fantastic. It wasn't my favorite book of the month, but I did enjoy it overall, and I'm happy I read it. This one's about a very famous screenwriter who gets his dream job, but he has to be producing this show that his arch nemesis is the main character on, so he tries to get his like revenge by making her like horrible in the plot of the show, which doesn't work out so well because she's the most like beloved person ever, so overall it is cute. She's Not Sorry is a book that's on my May TBR, so I'll have my thoughts on this one coming very soon, but I'm going in blind, and so far I've heard that it's really good, but I don't know what the plot is about at all yet. We also have this Mary Higgins Clark book that just came out in this new cover. It is called Moonlight Becomes You, and I feel like her books are really intriguing to me. This one sounds really good. This one says that it is about a woman desperate to uncover the truth about her beloved stepmother's death. This next one is a special edition. This is the reappearance of Rachel Price, and it has the beautiful sprayed edges, so very excited for this one. This is the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so this is a very anticipated release for me. Next is Young Rich Widows, which basically is about these women who their husbands all died on a plane crash, and they are not really friends. The widows aren't friends, but they have to come together to try to figure out what actually happened to their husbands, what were their husbands up to. That seems like they're going to have been keeping secrets from them, so it looks very intriguing. Next up, we have Orphea and Eurydice, and this is a Greek mythology retelling, but it's a gender-swapped version. Then we have Your Blood, My Bones, and this one sounds wild. It would take me too long to explain the premise of this one, but look it up because this sounds actually so good, and I'm super intrigued by it. I showed a different copy of this one earlier, but this is the real book by Sarah Adams. This is the ARC version that I read before I got the other copy, and again, this is so good. If you like romance, this is an absolute must-read for the summer. Speaking of summer reads, both of these books are my May TBR, so we have Tourist Season by Brenda Novak, and then also Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Both of these I have very high expectations for, so I'm really excited for these. I think they're going to be amazing. Next up, we have this memoir called Sociopath, and I've heard really good things. I feel like this memoir is going to be absolutely amazing. It says it's a fascinating, revelatory memoir recounting the author's struggle to come to terms with her own sociopathy and to shed new light on the often maligned and misunderstood disorder. Then we have Begin Again, which deals with the topic of, like, if you could change the past to be different, would you go back and do it, and, like, how would that affect your present? It looks really good. It is a little thick, though. We also have this nonfiction book called The History of the World in 12 Shipwrecks, and it's exactly as it seems. It's a history book, but explaining the history, going through, like, a linear timeline through, like, 12 very major shipwrecks that happened throughout that time. Then we have another YA mystery book called Something Kindred. We also have a YA fantasy called Draw Down the Moon. I love the cover of this one. We have, I didn't realize this is in here, another copy of Just for the Summer. Have I read this book yet? No. But the other one was a signed copy, and this is a Book of the Month copy, so I, of course, am psychotic, so I had to have both of them. Then we have this YA fantasy book called Darker by Four. Next up, we have this book called Habitations, and this deals with the topic of immigration. It follows this woman immigrating from India to the United States. It says she has to navigate first love, a green card marriage, single motherhood, and more in this delightful novel. So super excited for this one. We also have this one which looks very eerie to me. This one's called The North Line, and this is a thriller mystery type of book. We also have a memoir called The Rebel Rising, and actress Rebel Wilson. I never remember her full name, but I really loved Pitch Perfect, and I loved her in that, so I really wanted to get this one, so I'm excited to receive that. We also have a book of the month copy of the reappearance of Rachel Price, so again, highly anticipated release, so I accidentally got it in 2 different copies. We also have another book of the month, which was called A Short Walk Through a Wide World, and this one looks really, really good. The premise of this sounds amazing. This is a fantasy book, and it's about this woman who will basically die if she ever stops, like, traveling. So she is walking through the whole world. She's never going to stop because she's going to die from the condition that she has, and I just feel like that sounds so intriguing to me. And then we also have this collection of short stories called Table for Two. And now we're on to our very last stack, so we're making it there slowly. We have Grace Riley's new book, Breakaway, and this is just a newly published in this cover book. She's doing all these cartoon covers. I read First Down like a month ago and loved it so much, so I'm very excited for this. This is like an interconnected world, so very exciting. And then these 2 books are going to be coming out soon in these cartoon covers. I love cartoon covers, so absolutely love that one. Then we have this one called The House of Broken Bricks. And this says, every marriage has its seasons. It's autumn when we meet Tess, but her marriage to Richard is in a deep, cold winter. A winter so harsh their union might never see the bright light of spring. The Sleepwalker sounds very spooky and creepy to me because it's about this couple that goes to honeymoon in Greece, and the place that they're staying, there's only them and one other couple staying there, and the person at the front desk is very weird and putting way too much interest in this couple, and it just sounds very creepy. So I'm excited for that as somebody going on a honeymoon this year. It sounds very fantastic. Then we have The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, and this is about this boy who gets basically left on the doorstep of this Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, and he's raised by them, and as he's an adult now, he's trying to uncover who he actually is and where, who basically left him at this doorstep. We have a couple more book of the months. We have The Wives, which is a memoir, and then we also have Dragonfruit, which is a YA fantasy book. Then we have this historical fiction called The House is on Fire, and it takes place in the 1800s, and it's about this theater that went up in flames and is told through the perspectives of 4 different people whose lives were completely changed by this. A Better World sounds like a wild thriller. It is about this neighborhood that is for the idyllic 0.1% of people. It seems perfect. It costs a lot of money to live there, of course, but everything's gonna go awry. It's actually for the 0.0001% of people, and I'm excited to see it's gonna be rich people behaving badly, I think, and just bad things happening, and it's gonna be really fun. Then we have another thriller called The Whole Truth, and this is part of this Kara Hunter's series, and they're all connected, but you don't have to read them in any specific order. I read this one this last month, and I haven't read any of the other ones, but I'm excited to read some more of them. The first one that I read was pretty good. Then I have not 1, not 2, but 3 copies of How to End a Love Story. Don't know why I ended up with 3, but the publisher sent me the ARC and I read it and really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. Then the publisher sent me a finished copy, and I had already ordered a book of the month copy because I'm addicted to their copies and I really love them. So I ended up with 3 copies, but this one's really, really good. This is an enemies to lovers situation where this girl has to go basically co-write on her novel getting turned into a screenplay, and the person that she has to co-write with, or one of the people in the writing room, is somebody that she blames for her sister's death. So it's very much an enemies to lovers because she hates this guy, and I really thought this book was very well done. It's obviously a little bit deeper and darker than some other romance books. It's not super light and fluffy, but it's still a really enjoyable read. Then we have not 1, but 2 copies of Daughter of Mine, another one that I got the ARC of, loved it so much, so I got the book of the month copy too. This is my favorite Megan Miranda. I gave this 5 stars, and I absolutely love this. This book is so atmospheric and creepy. It follows this woman who's going back to her hometown after a decade away because her dad passed away. So she goes for the funeral thinking she's just gonna leave the next day, only to find out that her dad left her the house in the will, even though she has 2 brothers. And so she's staying there to try to figure out why her dad left her the house. And there's a drought that's uncovering some secrets in the lake, and it might help her to find out what happened to her mother who disappeared when she was a kid. It's so good. Next up we have Wild Love by Elsie Silver, which I will be reading soon because otherwise my sister-in-law will probably never speak to me again. She loved this book so much, and I'm excited for it. I'm a little intimidated though. It's kind of thick, but I'm excited to give it a read. I hear it's really good. I read and loved The Serial Killer's Apprentice. This is a true crime book, and it's my second favorite true crime I've ever read. This was fantastic. The first half goes really in depth into this case. The second half goes more into the psychology behind people who become serial killers and how to look out for warning signs. But this is a case where there's a serial killer, and he very, very much had a lot of victims that were young boys, but he took this one boy under his wing. He was 14 years old at the time, and instead of killing him, he trained him to also be a serial killer, and then that boy that he trained killed him and reported himself. So he turned himself in afterwards. So the killer that he trained became his own murderer, basically, which is so wild. Then we have Taming Seven, which is the 5th book in the Boys of Tommen series. I just read the first book, so I'm making my way to this book. book. This is the smallest one so far, which I'm kind of excited for because the first and through fourth book are all like 600 to 800 pages, which is wild, but so far I'm liking the series. Next up is the Briar Reese series by Al Kennedy. This was already published in different covers, but these are the special editions that came out this month that have the cartoon covers. So these are so much cuter. I love them to death. I'm super excited to read this series very soon. Then we have this K-pop mystery book called The Band, and I'm not gonna lie, this wasn't my favorite. I gave this like 3 stars. It's okay, but I had to listen on audio because I could not get into the writing style of this book. I don't know what it was, but I kept rereading paragraphs because I just wasn't absorbing it because I just couldn't get into it. So not my favorite, but it is okay. And if you're interested in that topic, then I feel like it'll probably be more interesting to you. Next up we have You Know What You Did, which is a very twisty looking thriller. The little blurb says, if thoughts could kill ... which has me very intrigued for this one. We also have this nonfiction called Alien Earths, which is a riveting and timely look at the research that is transforming our understanding of the cosmos in the quest to discover whether we are alone. Sounds very intriguing. Then we have this book called Burn For Me, and I think this came out in a different cover. Like, I think this is the new cover that it came out in, but this is a book in a series, and I really like this because this is written by a couple, like a married couple, and I feel like that's adorable. Then we have the book I'm the Girl, which recently came out in paperback, and the premise of this one sounds absolutely wild. It's about this girl that basically goes to work in this like group that's very creepy seeming, and somebody dies in this group, one of the girls who's working for them, and so she and this other girl are trying to uncover what happened to this young girl and why her death is being like covered up. We have another new Mary Higgins Clark in a new cover, which is It Had to Be You. Again, I'm excited to read these. I've only read one of her books so far, and I did like it. It wasn't my favorite ever, but I definitely will be giving her another try. Then we have this one called Nothing But the Bones, and this is a like detective type thriller. We have this one called Thorn Tree, and this says is for readers of Emma Cline and Jennifer Egan. It's a beautifully wrought novel on the aftershocks of the heady but dangerous late 1960s and the relationship between trauma and the creative impulse. And then last couple of books here, we have this one called The Poison Pen, which I think is like a cozy mystery type book. And then lastly, we have this book called Merciless Saviors, which is book 2 in a series. I haven't read up on what this book's about because I need to read book 1 first, but that is all of them. This was an absolutely insane month. I don't think I've ever received or purchased this many books that came out in 1 month before. It's absolutely crazy, but I've read and loved so many of these. So let me know one of 2 things, either your favorite book that you've already read out of any of these, or the book that you're most anticipated and looking forward to reading. Or also if there's any books that I don't have in this, because there are books, like Geneva Rose came out with a book that I don't have yet that I definitely want to get a copy of. There's some other authors that came out with books that I didn't get a copy of. It'd be surprising to hear that because I have so many, but if there's any other books that I do not have on this list that you think I should have had on this list, then let me know that as well. And lastly, if you want these to be monthly, then let me know, because this is my first time doing this type of video. This takes quite a while to like collect all of the books and make them stay in the same place all month. So let me know if you actually want more videos like this specifically, because otherwise I probably won't do them again.